make sure you ask me. So these are the functions. Briefly, I mention them. So you should know for quiz purposes, exam purposes, future life, becoming a doctor purposes, right? You will, when you become a doctor, you will see the reports. Not then, you do not see them on the microscope, but you see the reports. A patient has a lot of, I don't know, let's pick one. A patient has a lot of eosinophil. One thing should come to your mind is that person possibly has some kind of parasite, right? And you learned that in zoology when you were in dental college. You did not learn that in medical school, right? Of course you learned a lot of stuff in medical school, right here. Okay, again, oh boy, that must be very important. It came up twice. Blood composition, blood, that was a quick question you guys wrote down this morning. Let's go over it. I'm not too crazy about a few things. Again, do not worry about plasma, dissolved solids, dissolved gases. Formed elements are red blood cells, white blood cells. I mentioned it. That's formed elements, red blood cells, white blood cells, leukocytes, and thrombocytes. Yeah, I gave you the term. So don't say, oh, Amir, I've never seen it in my notes. Yes, you have seen it in your notes. Thrombocytes are platelets. Platelets are primarily responsible for your, if you cut yourself for blood coagulation, they go in there and make your bleeding stop. Right, one of the main functions. So, and you do have them in your slides. If you want to see one, let me know, I'll help you. Then there are a whole bunch of protein molecules, but I'd like you to know these three. Okay, one of them is albumin, which is responsible for your osmotic pressure in your body. The other one is globulin, which I will talk about it. There are 5 major ones that you should know. Damage, the acronym I choose is called damage. And then the last one, fibrinogen, which is, again, another protein molecule away from these guys. It's responsible for coagulation, blood coagulation. You all know what coagulation means, okay? So I talked about osmotic pressure, immunoglobulin, which I'm going to elaborate on that here in a minute, and then for coagulation, which you already know. Cells of acquired immune response, it means acquired immune response, it means an immunity that you were not born with it. You acquire it as you age. Am I making some sense, everybody? And there are some people who are born without that immune system. They have the innate, they call it innate immunity. It means your skin, your mucosa, other goodies. But anyhow, I'm not going to go too much in talking about that. So B lymphocytes, they make antibody. Quiz question. Later on, you argue with me and say, Amir, on notes say plasma cells. No, not really. It's B lymphocytes. I'm going to show you pictures and we'll talk about it. T lymphocytes, they have surface receptors, T cells, subunits, CD4, CD8, which is very important in AIDS, diagnosis of AIDS, CD4, CD8. T helper cells, T helper 1, T helper 2, natural killer cells or mast cells. They do not discriminate. They can kill and destroy a lot of cells, tissues, not tissues, a lot of antigens or foreign invaders in the body. Okay, antibody, let's talk about it, and then I will talk about how these guys are being produced. First, let's talk about antibody. Antibody in general, most of them are Y-shaped. Doesn't this look like a Y? A big Y, it has one strand here. It is made up of, if I ask you essay question, this is one of the essay questions at the beginning, what is the structure of antibody? Okay, here it is. Antibody is made up of 4 chain of protein molecules. Proteins are made up of what? You guys? Amino acids, thanks to biology 1. Right? If it was not because of biology 1, we would not be here. Isn't it? So, looking at things in a different angle. Okay, so I have 4 chains of protein molecules. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes? All of these 4 chains are connected together by, what do you call this? Disulfide bond. Disulfide bond. It means this amino acid here on this chain has what? amino acid has sulfur biology 1? Do you remember? Methionine is one of them, but these are not methionine. Very good. The other one is cytosine. Remember that? Cytosine has sulfur. So there's a cytosine here, there's a cytosine here, there's cytosine here, 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 and they form disulfide bond. So all of these 4 chains are connected together. Then, on the bottom of these chains, of course, they call this a light chain, they call this a heavy chain, they call it a heavy chain, a light chain, 2 light chain, and 2 heavy chains. And then on the bottom of these chains, these are the area, not the shaded area, I don't know, the constant area, they call it constant region, right? It means the sequence of amino acid pretty much among antibodies are pretty much the same. But the sequence of amino acids in the shaded area right here are different. It is based on the immunity you came across. I hope I'm making some sense. What does that mean? It means the sequence of amino acid here, they call it variable region or antigen binding site. Same thing, variable region, antigen binding site. It means if you had food poisoning, the sequence of amino acid here is different than if you had a common cold. If you had a common cold, your body made antibody, the sequence of amino acid here is different than you had food poisoning. Am I making some sense? That's how the antibodies are different. That's why when you go to a doctor and they want to check see if you have a disease or not, an infectious disease, they take your blood and they check for the antibody. They do not look for common cold virus. They do not look for food poisoning, bacteria. They look for if you have the antibody or not. You have the antibody, you got the disease. It's an indirect way of saying you have a disease or not, but that's how it is. Yes, easy. You had a question a century ago, maybe.
Before the antigen binds to it, what is the chain like?
There is none.
Oh, it's not.
Your body, and I will go over it here in a minute. Your body makes it. See, it's acquired. You acquire it as you get food poisoning. Before you get food poisoning, you will not have these antibodies. AIDS patients, you think they look for HIV? No, they don't look for HIV. They look for the antibody, if they have it or not. It's too expensive to look for HIV itself. In expensive cases like Magic Johnson, I don't know if you guys know that or not, they said, no, we don't trust these type of tests. We want to find the HIV in Magic Johnson to say, because of insurance policies of millions of dollars, we said we want the actual virus. So they went to spinal tap and they got the actual virus. He had the actual virus, not the antibody.
Wait, HIV destroys your immune system. How would you produce an antibody for that?
Before it destroys your immune system, you have some antibody for it. Okay, anyhow, let's go. I'm going to, I don't want to go too tangent, guys. Okay, so what happens right in this diagram? Oh, you guys in this one, please be careful. These rulers in the past hit some heads. But I'm glad you have it.
Face shield.
But yeah, you bring some helmet with you guys. Okay, what happens right here is called viral antigen. This is not in your textbook, but you should cherish it, this PowerPoint. Okay. So this is called viral antigen. It could be a bacterium. It could be a fungi. It could be, it says viral, it's misleading. It could be anything. A bacteria, parasite. It could be a parasite. It could be anything. So let's say it's an antigen. Get rid of that term viral. It's an antigen, and what happens, this cell is called antigen-presenting macrophage. What happens, it recognizes this foreign substance in the body. Okay? Then, when it recognizes this foreign substance, it does do nothing. It does do nothing except making interleukin. I did not, interleukin, I spelled it for you guys. Interleukin is a protein molecule which is released by antigen-presenting macrophage. It releases and stimulates the next white blood cells, which is T helper cells. And it could go on a little bit, a few more, a few more, a few more. finally, the interleukin right here stimulates the B cells. These are the cells, you remember I said it already earlier, that these B cells make the antibodies. But the B cells, when they make antibody, they also can differentiate to memory cells for your next infection. That's how vaccines come into picture. Jenner was the first person who discovered this vaccination from cowpox and to human smallpox and so on and so forth. You know the story. But anyhow, the B cells right here become memory cells or plasma cells, and right here, what do you guys think these? This is the nucleus. What do you think these are?
Lysosomes.
No. No. These are rough endoplasmic reticulum with ribosomes on top of them, and they are, of course, in biology 1, you learn rough endoplasmic reticulum makes one of the function of it, make protein molecules, and just right now you learn the antibodies are protein molecule. The Y shape, the Y shape. So the Y shape, they attach the antigen binding site. Remember these parts? Attach the antigen, whatever it is, and then they attach the whole complex, the antigen and the antibody, they attach to phagocytic macrophage. And phagocytic macrophage engulf, eat up this foreign material, whatever that is, and then they destroy. Okay, this entire thing that I went over is called humoral immune response. Okay, the analogy that I have, if you would have watched my previous videos, I would say if an intruder comes in this room, right? This room is supposed to be holy. Nobody can walk in here without, of course, our permission. I want to say without my permission. Isn't that's a law? Anybody comes in here, I can call police to come and take him. Even my boss, the president of college comes in here, I can call and say, come and take her away. Is it her? Take her away. Both of them, my boss and the president of college. But anyway, let's say somebody, then, not them. If somebody comes in here, what I do? Will I go ahead, put a handcuff on this person and ask him to take him off? No, I'll make a phone call, right? Right there, I'll make a phone call. That's interleukin. The phone call goes to where? Goes to where? Goes to dispatcher. Does dispatcher comes and arrest this person? No. Dispatcher tells the police, and the police will come with handcuff. They take him away. This is the best analogy, you guys, over the years I came up with. I sat down at home and think about these things. What story can I tell that sinks in? You know, there are steps. There are steps. And then the last part, your textbook says, this part is cellular immune response. Cellular immune response, it means the cell, the phagocytic macrophage will go ahead and eat this guy. I'll put him in jail, of course. The policeman will not eat the person, the intruder. We'll take him to jail. And in jail, hopefully, undergoes what they call them, remediation? What is that?
Remediation.
Not remediation.
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation, something. That's the word I'm looking for.
You've been found guilty of trespassing?
Yeah, something like that. Okay, this is, you guys, this is what is in your textbook now. Okay, if you look at it, it says humoral immune response. Is that right? I don't have, yes. This is humoral immune response, and this is cell-mediated response. And if you look at it, it's a combination of both. Pretty much, that's what I was talking about. The different type of antibodies we have IgM, IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, and damage, and IgD. I would like you to know that there are 5 major antibodies that I would like you to know. It's damage, the acronym. And IG is the abbreviation of immunoglobulin. You remember there are 3 proteins I would like you to know: fibrinogen, immunoglobulin, and the other one, I forgot already what it is. So IgD is one of them, damage. IgA is the other one, IgM. IgM is pretty much the first antibody that your body, you make in order to fight a antigen, if you would. After a while, after a week to, it depends, a month, then your body makes IgG. IgG is more specific. Okay, so when they are detecting I in your blood, they want to make sure. That's why they ask, since they don't know you got an infection recently or you got an infection 2 years ago, they don't know that. When you go submit blood and they find, yes, you're positive for, I don't know, diarrhea or whatever, cholera, whatever it is, I don't know. Okay, so they say, well, I'll come back in a month or 2 weeks, they test you again. And then they want to see if this shows up. At the beginning, it's very hard to show between, again, I'm going tangent a little bit. I hope you understand the material. But this shows up first in the body, just like neutrophil. If you have an infection, neutrophil is the first white blood cell that appears at the site of the infection. And then later on, other guys come up. Basophil, depends on what kind of infection you have. Same as IgM. IgM is the first antibody that shows up, and then IgG is more specific. Okay, let's go to the heart. The parts of the heart, the next thing we need to talk about is how does all of that antibody and all of that white blood cells and red blood cells percolate in our body, and it is this structure right here, which is coming apart right here. Okay, so the best thing I have to say about heart, you guys, it's a cycle. It doesn't matter where you start. The cycle, right? If I want to draw a cycle in here, doesn't matter. But the best place, most textbooks, that's where they start. That's what I like to start too. Right here is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Heart. You need to know 4 blood vessels. You need to know 4 chambers. You need to know 4 valves in here. That's all. Nothing else. Have you heard of that saying, I got a heart as big as Rhode Island? You know, I never made it. I just made it up. Okay, so right here is the heart. And then 4 blood vessels. I'll go over all of them. I talk about circulation in the heart, and then I'll wrap it up with what are the 4, you tell me, what are the 4 blood vessels, 4 chambers, and 4 valves. 4, right? 444. Okay, right here. So these 2 are superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava brings blood from upper portion of your heart, whatever is above your heart. All of that blood. I will talk about deoxygenated and oxygenated here in a minute. What time lecture is over? 2. Really? Oh, I'm behind schedule. That's okay. So from superior vena cava, blood comes into the right atrium. From inferior vena cava, blood goes to right atrium. And from all the way from my toe, blood goes into inferior vena cava and end up in right atrium. And right here is right atrium. And from right atrium, between right atrium and right ventricle, right here, there is a valve right here. It's called right atrioventricular valve. That's the term I like. And that's what I'm hoping you write down during the exam. Right atrioventricular valve. Then, when the right ventricle, the right side of, this is in my body just like this. That's what they call it. This is the right side of the heart, this is the left side of it. Because it's embedded in my body just like this. And that's what I'm showing you. So when the right ventricle contracts, squeezes, it pushes the blood into a valve right here. That valve is called pulmonary semilunar valve. You guys see it a little bit? Pulmonary semilunar valve. Blood from right ventricle goes to pulmonary semilunar valve. Then it goes to pulmonary artery. Artery always takes the blood away from the heart. Vein brings blood into the heart. So this is an artery, takes the blood away from the heart. And where does it take it to? Lungs. Okay, so blood goes to the lungs and become oxygenated and comes back. And right here, these two red circles, you see them here, you guys? This is called pulmonary vein. From pulmonary vein, blood goes to the left side of the heart. That's called left atrium. There are two of them because it's right and left lungs. Okay? So it goes to the left atrium. From left atrium, this part is missing. What is the name of the valve here? Left atrioventricular valve. Right here is missing in this model. Left atrioventricular valve. From left atrioventricular valve, blood goes into left ventricle. You guys can see that, everybody can see that. From left ventricle, when it squeezes, it goes into right here. It's inside, you probably simply cannot see it. It's called aortic semilunar valve, right here. And from aortic semilunar valve, it goes to aorta. From aorta, it goes to the rest of the body. So I'm going to step by step. Let's go over a few other things that I would like you to know. One of them, let's go over the four. Blood vessels in the heart. 4 blood vessels. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. That's 1. I consider that's 1. Superior, inferior. Vena cava, just vena cava. Okay, yeah. That's 1. Then the other blood vessel is pulmonary artery. That's 2. Is that right? Pulmonary artery. The third one is your pulmonary vein. There are 2 of them, right and left lung. That's the third blood vessel you should know. And the fourth one is your aorta. The aorta takes the blood to the rest of the body, right? 4 chambers of the heart. Right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Quick question. Why right atrium, right here, is thinner than right ventricle? Look at the thickness of the muscle. Why right ventricle is thinner than left ventricle? Why?
Ventricles under more pressure.
Pumps against like a systematic blood pressure, the whole body.
Good. This guy, this chamber, has to push the blood to the whole entire body, all the way to your brain and all the way to your toes. That's why it has to be very thick and muscular. This one, it pushes the blood to where only? Lungs. This one pushes the blood only to the lungs, not very thick. This one, it better be thick, because it has to push the blood all the way to your toes, all the way to your brain. Left ventricle is thicker, more muscular. This is the apex of the heart, right? Apex, when you draw a heart for your loved one or for a kid, you have the apex, right? That's left ventricle. Right here is the left ventricle. We call it the apex of the heart. Okay. Couple other things. Anything, if you, I don't know, you dissected any frog or cat, all of the blood vessels in frog or cat or human, if they injected them, the arteries are red, the arteries are red, and the veins are blue. It means veins do not have much oxygen. Arteries have a lot of oxygen, which I will talk about at the end of the day. Do I make sense, everybody? Is everybody with me? What am I talking about? However, there is an exception. The exception is artery. This is the only artery in your body. This is the only artery in your body that takes the blood away from heart, that has deoxygenated blood. It does not have much oxygen. And I will talk about that in next material, when I talk about lungs. This one does not have any oxygen. Has, but not much. This tube is the only vein, exception to the rules, the vein that does not have deoxygenated blood. It has oxygenated blood. This one has oxygenated blood. These two veins that comes from lungs, right? Your blood goes to the lungs, gets oxygenated, and brings it to the heart, and heart pushes throughout the body. One quick story I have to tell you. This one guy, at the end of semester, he thought we were talking about other animals and other things and so on and so forth. It's when we were away from human. Right now we are focusing on human mammals. And he thought we have a special, special organ or a special portion of our heart brings the blood into the heart. I said, no, there is none. He said, really? I said, yeah, there is none. It is your skeletal muscles that brings blood into the heart. All heart does pushes the blood into the lungs, get oxygenated, and comes back again by your exercises, come back to the heart, and heart pushes the blood to the rest of your body. He didn't know that. I hope you don't make that mistake. We do not have a heart separate than this one in our body that brings the blood, like it's vacuum, sucks the blood into our heart. This is the only organ we have that pushes the blood into the rest of our body, or pushes. I didn't say bring. It pushes blood into lungs. This is it. You don't have anything. That's why I say exercise. When you don't exercise, blood is not pumped into your heart. Anyhow, let's go. So, I'm not going to go over the parts. Here they are. We went over the parts. Okay, the difference between artery and vein, that's a question in your questions at the beginning. Here it is. This is an artery which has oxygenated blood, except the ones in the heart. Oxygenated blood. You have endothelial right here. One layer of simple squamous epithelial tissue. Endothelial, in reality, is called simple squamous epithelial tissue. In a lab practical exam, if you write me down simple squamous epithelial tissue, I will not give you credit. You must write down endothelial. That's how it is. Inside of your heart is also, where is my heart? I know it's here, but right here. Inside of your heart is also covered with endothelial cells. One layer of squam. All of inside of the heart, all of it, is covered with endothelial tissue. Endothelial. I gave it to you. Okay? So, one layer of, and then after that is myocardium, so on and so forth. Okay, so these are blood vessels, endothelial. And outside of it is elastic fiber connective tissue. Outside of it is smooth muscle, and that's pretty much it. And outside of that, connective tissue. In the vein, you have smaller smooth muscle. Almost same layer of elastic fiber, connective tissue, but smooth muscle is much, much thinner, and that's why you see it on your slides collapsed. You see your arteries in your slides like this because of smooth muscle. Look how thick it is. But you do on your vein, you will see it almost like this. Okay, I hope I'm making some sense. And then another difference between vein and artery. I asked one of the questions in your questions at the beginning, what are the differences between the artery and vein? So that's one difference I said. The other difference, vein have valves. They have valves. Arteries do not have valves. The reason you have valves, because blood does not flow backward. See, I'm working very hard to exercise, push the blood up to my body, so sometimes I stand or sit down, blood should not go back. So there are valves. Right here they have valves. Okay? Vein, all of the veins except the exception I talked about, they carry deoxygenated blood. Arteries carry oxygenated blood, the blood that has oxygen. Okay, here there's pretty much, what is in here? Of course you have sphincters, you have, what happens, the blood goes from artery to arterioles, from arterioles goes to capillary, From capillary goes to venules. From venules goes to vein. From vein goes to inferior vena cava, or if in the upper portion of the body, superior vena cava. That's the cycle. From vena cava goes to the heart. From vena cava goes to the heart, and eventually after circulating the heart and lungs, it goes to aorta. From aorta to artery. From artery to arterioles. From arterioles to capillary. From capillary to venules, and back to vein, and back to heart. I'm on straight. Okay, the next one is your respiratory system. I would like to stop here, but as long as you guys know what's going on for this section, I hope you know what I'm talking about. So the circulation of the blood, we have two other things. I'm going to write down here. It's not going to be. You keep please write it down in your notes. We have systemic circulation, and then we have what is the other one? Systemic circulation, and then we have the S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't ask.
Systemic circulation, and the other one is pulmonary. I've been talking about that. Pulmonary circulation. Okay, so systemic circulation is the circulation between heart and rest of body, and then this one, pulmonary circulation, is between heart and lungs. I should have a picture coming up. I don't know what happened to it. Okay, so that's another thing. And then you know the passage. Let me write it down because some of you might guys might, get confused. Right here you have aorta. Blood goes from heart to aorta to artery to arterial. From arterial, look at my colors. Look at my colors. I write down capillary, and from capillary goes to the oxygenated blood. Venule, from venule to vein, from vein to vena cava, both of them. Vena cava, from vena cava goes to heart, and heart pumps it to the lungs and become oxygenated. Okay, guys. See you on Thursday. You have a quiz until the beginning. If you guys want me to say what question, I know you guys are. I tried to send it to you, but what are different composition, humoral immune response, what is passage of right here. Question number 24. Everything else. Question number 24. And the slides in the lab, make sure you know them all the way to the lungs. The lung is not, I don't know what number that is. If you have slide description, I do not have. If you have slide description, to the lung. Yes?
Did you say number 24 or just respiratory?
I didn't talk about respiratory system. I didn't talk about it. So it's not in there. Up to 24. 23 is in there. 23 is in there. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, guys.